Awesome. Cool, cool, cool. So let's go ahead and share my screen here. Alrighty. So hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. So for today, we're going to be covering AI-powered document management. And I'll be your host. My name is Carlos Parra, and I'm a pre-sales engineer here at Laserfiche. I do want to give it maybe just another minute to wait for some more people to come in, and then we'll go ahead and get started. But this should be a short demo, just a quick little overview of our document management solution, and then show you some of the new tools that we have to essentially give you some more functionality and allow you to leverage your data a little bit more efficiently. I think that's enough time. We'll just go ahead and move on here. I'm going to click into my screen here so I can move the next slide. Awesome. So for today's agenda, we're going to be covering Laserfiche's benefits. Primarily, we're going to be focusing on the document management portion. So we're going to look at just the repository. We do have other solutions because Laserfiche is in and of itself a platform, but we won't get into those today. From there, we'll actually then move on to the new AI tools, and specifically, we'll be talking about smart chat, smart fields, but I'll also be highlighting some other functionality as well, and we'll get into that in the actual demonstration. Now, for the actual demonstration, I'm going to touch on some of these key points here. So we're going to be doing an overview of the repository. We're also going to be showing you how to work with your documents in the repository. And then we're going to leverage some of the AI tools so I can show you how we can actually use those AI tools to leverage our data a little bit more effectively and efficiently for everyday use. And then I'm going to show you search and retrieval and how that works within the Laserfiche system. So to start off, some of the solution benefits for Laserfiche, specifically its DMS or its document management solution, is that it's a centralized document storage solution, right? So many organizations, at least currently, they might have their documents siloed. They might have them in individual folders that only the business units themselves can access. And that can be a little bit hard for organizations that need to share data or at least have data be easily transferable between departments, right? Well, within Laserfiche, it's all centralized, meaning that it's all in one place. It's easy to manage, it's easy to navigate, and it's also secure as well. And we're going to get into that when we actually talk about some of the granular security access controls that Laserfiche functionality gives you. There's also flexible indexing tools in Laserfiche in the form of metadata templates, metadata fields, tags as well, just another way to categorize documents. But you can also establish links, version control your documents, and also apply records management properties, which all become searchable within the system. So it makes leveraging those options a lot easier when it comes time to retrieve your data. There's also, as I mentioned, some of the AI tools that are built in so we can leverage them to essentially modify our data in new ways, extract data in new ways, and also we can actually query that data or document data in new ways so we can get even more useful information out of our documents. And there's a whole lot of built-in functionality that it's not on this page, and an example of that would be some built-in integrations that we have with Microsoft Office 365. We also have an integration with DocuSign, so we can have documents be sent to DocuSign for that third-party validation, and then have them sent back to the repository, just if you want that extra validation from something like a legal document or some legal requirement on a document that needs to be facilitated. We also have easy to share options. So we have a direct share option with documents that allows you to essentially share a link to a file or a folder and then manage that share directly within the repository. We also have supporting automation tools that allow you to trigger automated processes when a document is brought into the system. Again, as I mentioned, we have configurable search options and much more, including an auditing tool as well. So if you want to essentially track any and all repository activities, you can do that with that auditing tool as well. Cool. So let's move on. Some of the AI tools that we're going to cover today is Smart Chat, which essentially allows you to kind of engage in conversation with your documents or your folders in the repository. So you can actually ask the system questions about your documents or your folders and have the system intelligently and contextually respond to those questions. And I'll show you an example of that with the documents we're going to be walking through in the demonstration. We also have Smart Fields, which is an AI-powered document extraction tool that doesn't, it's incredible because it doesn't care about a document's format. It doesn't care if it's handwritten. It only cares about a prompt. And that prompt can be written in plain English. And it can be as simple or complex as you need it to be to essentially extract maybe general information or finely, attuned information. It's really up to you to determine with that prompt. But the important thing to note is that it's AI powered, which means that AI tool is going to essentially take that prompt with the context of the document that you're trying to extract data from and put all that information together and give you an intelligent response with regards to the data that's being extracted from your documents. And I'll show you an example of that with the demonstration in a moment. We also have AI-powered auto classification and tagging, which is another way to leverage the AI tool to make your life even easier, to essentially automatically identify the incoming document type and apply any necessary tags. Maybe, for example, applying something like a PII or maybe a confidential tag to documents as they come in and as the system recognizes which document is coming into the system. It's also worth mentioning that all the tools that I'm going to be showing you today are in the Laserfiche cloud environment, but our self-hosted environment also offers AI tools as well. And if you want to um, know a little bit more about that, we do have help files and documentation that do point to our self-hosted subscription system. Cool. With all that being said, let's go ahead and get right into the demo. So I'm just going to exit out of the screen here. And so now you can see, so this is the Laserfiche cloud repository. And this is a demo environment. So as you can see on the left-hand side, I have open the root folder here. And the subfolders here are basically going to be folders that resemble either business departments or industries that we typically demonstrate the product to. None of this is static by any means. So when your organization uses Laserfiche, you can configure your own folder structure. You can configure how it looks. As additional note here, if I right-click any of these, I can show the security here. You can actually also configure how your users and groups of users interact with folders and files in the system. And so what you're looking at right now is the access rights that have been doled out to users or groups of users for this folder, which is the behavioral health folder. And that's actually going to empower organizations and administrators to actually segment or partition the repository to essentially limit what folders and files, users or groups of users can interact with. And that's great because, as I mentioned, Laserfiche is a centralized storage location, but even though it's centralized, you can still limit, right, what folders and files you want users to interact with, just so that we don't, have any mishaps, have someone maybe move a file they shouldn't have had access to, or maybe modify contents they never should have seen in the first place. As an additional note, not just access rights, but also effective rights allow administrators to finely tune how users interact with files and folders in the system. And so here you can see I have access to basically everything in the system, but you can absolutely grant or restrict these as needed based on a user or group's role. So this is something that administrators can leverage to make sure that they are fine tuning how users are going to interact with the system, what they can see, and more importantly, what they can do with their documents. And so, for example, you can do things like modify or grant and restrict, I should say, whether or not someone can modify a document, whether or not they can delete a document, whether or not they can see through redactions, which is pretty important for maybe giving someone access to a document without letting them see any personally identifiable information. Awesome. So now I'm going to cancel out of that screen. And so you can see here again, this is the root folder. These are all business departments we usually demonstrate to, but I'm going to show you an example of a file. And so a file that I want to show you that's pretty ubiquitous is the human resources files here for employee. And so what I want to do more than anything is I'm going to click on this folder here. And on the right-hand side, you'll see that this detail pane automatically updates to show me some metadata with respect to that folder. And what I want to highlight right now is that you can actually store metadata. And again, this is all indexing information. So you can search on this at any point in time for, documents, folders, just to make life easier for your users. But as you can see here, we have a template associated. We have specific tags like confidential and human resources. We also have a links section. And if I click on this fields tab here, you can see the template that's associated to this document actually also has metadata fields within it. And so a bit about that. In the context of the Laserfiche repository, templates are essentially a way to organize, categorize, and identify your document types. But they're also a way to consolidate important or identifying information about those types. And so here you can see within this employee file template, we also have the first name, the last name, position, and the department. So another thing about templates is that you're in complete control of the templates in your environment. You can create templates, you can assign any number of metadata fields within those templates, all in an effort to make your repository feel and look exactly the way you want it to. So you're storing important information with regard to any document type you're bringing into the system. Another thing I want to point out here is this more section. There's a records tab here. And you can see here within the system, we have a records management policy applied to this folder here. Now, a thing about Laserfiche is that it's highly configurable. So not just the templates, not just the tags, we also have records management policies that can also be configured and applied to documents as needed. So this is also something you can change within the repository and apply to your documents when they come into the system. You can also do it manually, but in an effort to make life easier for users and everyday use, we tend to want to make this automatic. So all of this can be applied based on the identified document type. And again, you're in complete control of the records management policies that are applied, whether they be specific cutoff instructions, retention schedules. Those retention schedules can have specific dispositions, like marking documents for archival, destruction, or maybe accession into another system. All of that is configurable within Laserfiche. So now that we've covered some of the basics here, I'm going to go ahead and show you what it looks like to bring a document into the system and have the system basically process, extract data from that document, and then make it usable for us. Awesome. So let me go ahead and click into my folder here. So I'm going to navigate at the very, very top here to this import and review. And again, it's just a demo environment. So what I'm going to be doing is just manually dragging and drop a file so I can trigger this demo as needed. But it's worth noting that Laserfiche has tools to automate that document intake. So if you have documents that come in via email, so you have a lot of attachments in emails, we have a tool that can automate bringing those attachments into the system to process them similar to what you're about to see now. We also have other tools that allow you to bring in documents from local or network drives, so we can automate that document intake, and then similarly, they'll be processed similarly to what you're going to see now. Also, if we do have an API, so if you want to bring in documents from another system via API, again, that can also be another automated process. So we can basically remove that document intake from it being essentially a manual step. So I'm going to drop this in right now, just again, as a for instance. As you can see right now, this modal pops up that allows me to modify some of the document settings before it actually reaches the repository. I can change the name, I can change the destination folder, apply a template, apply some tags, but I don't want to do any of that. And I'm just going to have the system take care of everything for me. So what I'm going to do with respect to this contract here is I'm just going to import it into the system. Similarly, if we were just, automating the document intake, we're just going to automate bringing it into the system, and we're going to have Laserfiche intelligently recognize this document's type. And based on the document type, we're going to extract all those relevant fields from that document. And again, you're in complete control of the templates in the system, which essentially are the document types, and what fields are in with those templates. So those metadata fields, you're in complete control of the data that you want extracted for each document type that you configure in the system. So now that I brought it into this incoming folder, you can see it's just waiting here, but I actually know that some of the processes have already started and they've actually already finished as well. And you can tell that because of this refresh icon in the top right. You can see that there's a button there and it has a little marker at the top right. So if I click that button, you can see that that document now disappears. And why it disappears is because it's actually part of an automated process that's actually supporting the repository, so that any document dropped into this incoming folder is going to be automatically processed based on some of the configuration in that supporting process. And what it did was actually move that document to my specific review folder, and it actually also went ahead and extracted data for me. So let me go ahead and show you what that looks like. I'm going to click on this entry here, this document. Actually, I'm going to open it up instead because I want to show you this. So Laserfiche actually has a built-in document viewer. So here you can see we actually have a view of the document. And alongside that view, we've actually now associated a template. And again, as I mentioned, this is all done using AI. So we can intelligently recognize the document type. We didn't have to do anything. And on top of that, the AI tool was smart enough to actually also extract some of these key fields for us, right? So we have the contract signers, we have the contract title, contract type, effective date, expiration date, summary, and so on and so forth. Again, you're in complete control of the fields that are contained within a template. It's also worth pointing out that when you're in this document viewer, you can actually swap through multiple views of the document. So we do right now, we're looking at the electronic file, which is the PDF of the document, but we do also generate an image view of the document, which can be modified using some annotation tools. As you can see here, we have some highlights, redactions, we can add sticky notes, stamps, and some other annotations as well that we can go ahead and associate alongside this image view. So if we ever need to modify this document with annotations and then export it out of the system, those annotations will be saved alongside that document. Another thing to point out with respect to our AI tools is the use of Smart Chat. So if I go to the top right here, I can actually click on that Smart Chat. And this is an AI powered, essentially document query tool where you can actually ask this tool just natural language questions about your document. It does give you some options here to essentially make, asking certain questions or certain common questions a little easier, but I'm going to go ahead and fine tune this question. I'm going to say something like, what are the payment terms for this document? And when I go ahead and click on that, the AI tool is going to take that question and it's going to essentially contextually take that question and give me a response based on this document. So now you can see on the right-hand side, it's responded based on the contents of this specific contract. So you can see based on the provided entry, payment terms for the document titled contract, and so on and so forth. And it actually responds to that question. Sorry, excuse me. So that's a quick little blurb about Smart Chat there. Let me go ahead and show you another cool feature about Smart Chat. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to my parent folder here. Actually, before I cover Smart Chat, I do want to show you some other cool nifty things. So I'm going to go ahead and select this status for data validation just to move this entry here. I'm going to refresh. I'm going to go back to my incoming here. So you saw me drop one document into the repository, but let's say you were dropping a bulk set of documents and they all have maybe different types, right? So we have a bulk set of documents that are being dropped in and they may all be different types. And I'm going to show you how the system can essentially recognize each of those contracts or each of those different document types intelligently, and then go ahead and process them in the system by applying specific templates and extracting specific data from each of those documents. So right now I'm dropping in, as you can see at the top right here, I'm dropping in 5 different document types, and they're all different. I'm just going to go ahead and do the same thing I just did. I'm going to import everything in. And we're going to have the AI tool just run for us. And then the purpose of this is to show you that the tool is pretty flexible. It's because it's, as I mentioned, it's an AI powered tool that doesn't care about format. It doesn't care if the document is typed, handwritten, if it's a specific document type. All it functions off is essentially a prompt in a specific field. So it's going to essentially automatically identify the template. And again, also extract information for us based on that template. So as you can see here, little by little, that color coding on the left-hand side is starting to identify the documents that are incoming into the system, and it's starting to apply those templates. And again, additionally, as part of that process, it's going to start building out or I should say, start moving those files to the correct folder where they're meant to go. Another thing to point out here, as you can see for this sample blood test results here, I'm going to open that up here. As you can see here, we have a completely separate template. As you can see, this is for patient test results. And again, you're in complete control of that information. So we went ahead and extracted that first name, last name for that patient, patient ID, any of the document type information that's important, some of the test results as well. And also importantly, we can also go ahead and click on this details tab to see that we already have an automatic tag applied maybe if that document contains PII. So this could also be something akin to a flag that's actually used in something like a process to maybe send this document for review to a specific or maybe a group of internal users that can only review information or documents with PII. So that's also something you can leverage with regards to our tools. Cool. Let's go ahead and click out of that. So now I'm going to navigate over to our contracts tab to show you a bit more about that smart chat option. So I'm going to click here and I'm going to go into advanced solutions. So here we are in this demonstration folder. And so here we have some sample contract uh, folders for this particular vendor here. So advanced solutions. So another cool thing about smart chat is not just something you can leverage for a document. You can actually leverage it against folders. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to open up another smart chat and I'm going to say something like summarize the contents of these folders. And so as you can see, the system already identified that there's 5 documents in those folders. And now you can see little by little, the system is essentially summarizing the contents of those folders, which is really nice because again, if you just want to get a quick overview of the contents of a folder, you can have the smart chat tool basically react to that question and give you that very quick, very easy to read summary of the content. You could also even ask it, hey, does this folder fill out the requirements of such and such contract, right? Again, the smart chat tool is going to respond to your prompt. And so depending on how you store your information or maybe a checklist of documents that need to be required for a particular contract to be maybe finalized, you can have smart chat basically take care of summarizing that information for anyone that needs to review, validate, or approve these contracts as part of a process. So let me actually show you what these documents look like. I'm going to click out of that and I'm going to click into software upgrade. As you can see in this software upgrade contract, we do have that template associated on the right-hand side, but I'm going to click into this particular document here, this W9. And as you can see, once we've clicked into this W9, we can see it on the left-hand side. Just to quickly highlight what I mentioned earlier with regards to those annotation tools, you can actually edit those documents in the system. So I can add something like a highlight there. I can do other things like maybe add, for example, a sticky note, say something like this needs review. It's also worth mentioning that when you bring documents into the system, the text on those documents is going to be extracted and it's going to be made fully text searchable, including any annotations such as the sticky note annotation that has text in it. That's also going to be fully text searchable within the system. Another thing you can do directly within our built-in document viewer is actually redact directly on the document. So if I go ahead and redact that, you can add a reason. I currently just have one saved reason, but you can actually create your own and configure them so that you can have users easily select one of those reasons. You can see that when I put on that redaction, it's essentially grayed out, but still viewable for me. And one of the reasons why it is because if I click on this advanced tab on the right, you can actually see at the very, very bottom under my effective right section, I have the option to see through redactions, right? And that's a part of the security that I showed you earlier. So my user account has that right granted, but you can absolutely restrict that right based on someone's role or maybe their group association. Again, just to make sure that we're maintaining secure access to the repository and only showing relevant information to specific users in the system. I'm going to go ahead and update that so those changes are applied. There you go. Another thing to point out about these documents, or I should say about some of the AI tools you can leverage with your documents, is that you can actually also access this summary tab, which is an extension of that smart chat tool to generate a summary that's going to be associated with your document. So this will be a summary that you can generate for each of your documents. This is a document level tool. You can create this summary and this summary will then exist alongside your document. So for a W9, creating a summary might not be all that effective, but if you have a 60-page contract or maybe a 100-page contract or maybe a particularly lengthy agreement, something like a business permit license, you can have the summary of that document just exist alongside it as well. And this is going to be quickly accessible by any user that needs to review, validate, or approve that document when it's in the system. Sorry. Awesome. So now that we've covered that, let's go back to our parent folder here. and I'm going to go ahead and show you the integration here. So as I mentioned, some of the other functionality in the repository is that we also have an integration with Microsoft Office 365. And you can see in the thumbnail here that I actually have a supporting document called Letter of Intent here. I'm going to click into that. And so once you click into a Microsoft document, and this is going to be a document kind of like a Word, you can do Excel, you can also do PowerPoint. They're going to be on a series of options that you have with this edit with button at the very, very top that allow you to actually seamlessly edit this document from the repository. And so there's two options here. The first one is the Microsoft Word for the web, which essentially allows you to open up this document in another browser tab. I can show you that in a moment. This other option here is Microsoft Word, which essentially is going to function as a check-in and check-out of the document that you want to work on. And so what that means is that you'll click on this option, it'll download the document locally and temporarily to your computer. You'll be able to work on it natively using your Microsoft Word application, make any edits as needed, and then you'll be able to check that document back into the system. And it's also worth noting that if someone comes across that document while it's checked out, it'll be in read-only format, meaning they won't be able to make any edits to the document. They won't be able to, well, essentially it'll be read-only, so they won't be able to modify it in any way, not until you check it back in. That's where this other option here for Microsoft Word for the web comes into play here. I'm actually going to click on this so I can show you. This actually opens up the document in another browser tab and allows you to simultaneously edit that document within the repository. And the benefit here is that it's actually a collaboration tool. And so if another user comes across that same document, they can actually open it up as well in their own browser, in their own tab, and edit it alongside you. And they'll have some of the functionality that they would have in the native um, Microsoft Word application or native Microsoft Office 365 application, whether it be Excel, Word, or PowerPoint. You can see here we have some of those tools that we can leverage to essentially modify that document, edit that document directly within the browser here. It's also worth mentioning that you can actually version control your documents as well. So this essentially allows you to keep track or keep trace of documents as they're modified in the system. So changes to the contents, whether it be text that's been added, removed, all of that will essentially exist as different versions in the repository. It's also worth mentioning that you can compare versions using our tool as well. So if you need to maybe compare version 1 to maybe version 5, you can have those comparisons pop up. So you can see what's been added and see, red line strike throughs for what's been removed. It's also worth mentioning if at any point in time you want to revert to an earlier version, if maybe you didn't like some of the modifications that were committed, you can absolutely do that as well using our version tracking tool. Cool. Let's go ahead and get out of this tab here. Another thing I want to point out is some of the sharing functionality in the repository. So if I go ahead and edit all, or I should say select all of these options here, I can right click and select the share option here. And this share option is going to allow me to either share this documents with another user. I can share it externally as well via the email, or I can use direct share, which is more of a targeted and managed share in the sense that you can password protect this share, and you can also disable the link to this particular share as well. Because with direct share, you're not just sharing the files, you're actually sharing a link to download those files. And because it's a managed share, you can actually get some information back when the user actually accesses that link. You can see when they clicked on that link, if they downloaded those files, and date and timestamp for that download as well. And at any point in time, you can also disable that link if you also want to rescind that share to those external users or internal users. Awesome. Let me just go ahead and show you some of the search functionality here. So I already covered sharing. I covered the smart chat, smart fields. Let me go ahead and show you some of the sharing options. Sorry, the search options here. So as you can see, now I'm in the search options for the repository. And once you're actually searching through your documents, you do get some general filters here. I'm actually going to click up here in the Save Searches section because what I'm going to show you here is that you can actually search for any text that's actually been transcribed from video and audio files. And this is going to be a functionality that's specific to Laserfiche Cloud. So if you're uploading a lot of video files, audio files, they're going to be transcribed automatically. And any of the text within those transcriptions can also be searched through. Integrations. And so I'm going to search right now for the keyword integrations for any video within the system. And so here you can see quickly the system went ahead and returned some results for me. It's also important to note if I select any one of these in the context hits at the very, very bottom, you'll see that there are a lot of appearances of that word in this particular video. You can actually access these context hits by double clicking these. It's actually a link that takes you to that video there. I'm not actually going to play that, but as you can see, it does open up in another tab. And it's also worth mentioning that the search function has a ton of filters. So you can actually leverage, as I mentioned, any of the indexing tools, whether it be tags, templates, fields, records management properties, versions, specific users. You can pair these filters together to create simple or complex searches that you can save and access at any point in time in the future. So an example of that would be something like this search video transcript, but it could also be something like searching maybe for invoices over 5,000. So now you can see that when I've clicked on that, you can see the template has changed. And in the bottom of that template, the specific field amount is set to more than 5,000. So once I click on that, you can see here in the contents, we have 2 invoices that pop up. And we have all of the columns that also pertain to the fields in those templates automatically populate. It's also worth mentioning that when you have a list of results in the repository, you can also generate reports for those results. So I can do something like maybe generate a metadata report. So here I can click on that. And a metadata report is just an Excel file or maybe a CSV file of the column information that you see in the back there. So that's something that you can generate and then export out of the system if you need to share information with someone, maybe for auditing purposes or maybe third-party validation. Awesome. Um, that kind of covers most of what I was going to share. Let me just go back real quick to the repository to show you one last bit of functionality here before we close out. So I didn't talk about this to start off, but we do have the records management section here for the repository, which essentially allows organizations that have to do a lot of maybe monitoring of retention schedule, a more streamlined way of viewing what's ready to be either archived or destroyed in the system. So now that we've in this records management tab, you can see here in this dropdown, I have some options here. So we can see which documents system are eligible for cutoff, which ones are eligible for disposition, and some other options as well. So I'm going to click this eligible for cutoff option, and I'm going to run a search on that. And you can see basically all of these documents are now eligible for cutoff, which means they now need to have their retention schedule kick in, right? And so Laserfiche is going to automate all that. The important thing to note here is that we can quickly identify which documents in the system have a specific records management policy applied, or which ones need to essentially be eligible for that cutoff. As you can see here for the disposition, these are all documents that have been marked as eligible for a particular disposition. It'll be listed here in the contents what disposition or that final disposition action. As you can see here, most of these are set to be destroyed, but you can absolutely mark those dispositions as ready for archival or ready for accession into another system. Awesome. So with all that being said, that pretty much covers the bulk of the document management system and some of the tools or the AI tools you can leverage with that system. Hopefully that was informative. And as a last note here, I am just going to open up my presentation one more time here. And if you have any additional questions or if you want any more information, we do have this book here, AI in Document Management, that's available. I do believe a link will be available in the description. But if not, you can please get in contact with someone here in the team and we can get this book for you. So with all that being said, thanks for joining. And that's about it. Thank you.